Many of us think we need to practice for hours upon hours, but science has proven that really efficient and targeted practice can be much more effective than noodling around with no clear direction. One of the other key ingredients of wasted practice time is when students spend large amounts of time perfecting scales, scale exercises, and other verbatim guitar practice activities. So if you want to be a creative guitar player, you have to start practicing creatively. In my mind, the best approach is through limitation or constraints practice. But why listen to me? Well, my name is Daniel Seraph, and I'm a professional guitar coach and performer. I've taught over 25,000 guitar lessons to guitarists just like you. And I pride myself on demystifying complex guitar concepts and making them simple for you so you can start being creative on the guitar today. Let's jump into exercise number 1. I call this subdivision flow or consistent rhythms. The goal here is to dial in your sense of timing and rhythm while improvising. The funny thing is many of us are focused in the practice room on being connected with the metronome and playing things like ascending and descending verbatim scales, arpeggios, all those things, playing them perfectly and in the groove. The most interesting thing is that when you move away from these scale exercises, your rhythm completely falls apart. Have you ever noticed this? Consistent rhythms will help you dial in your rhythmic technique while improvising, which is a different part of the brain than verbatim exercises. So you can show up at the jam, be in the groove and in the pocket, and jam confidently with other players. I'll be playing over a little minor backing track in the key of E minor. You can use any minor pentatonic shape that you feel comfortable with, including the diagonal pentatonics, which are my favorite. So we're gonna start simple and straightforward with the quarter note. And it might be simple, but the quarter note is the most important rhythm because it is the essence of the groove. It is, in fact, the beat. So do not overlook the quality of your quarter note. I want you to play along with me. We'll start with quarter notes, but let's play every note that we choose 4 times each. And make sure you make each note as connected to the next one as possible. Nice and legato. 2, 1, 2, like this. This is not an exercise to try and play the scale up and down. So once you can play the scale up and down, you need to leave that behind and try to make music even within limitations. So this is 4 times each. And I'm just locking into the groove. Let's move to 2 times per quarter note. These are still quarters, we're just moving to a new note every quarter. Sometimes grace notes as a little decoration. And if this is easy, you can move around to different shapes, but try and play music. Let's move finally to 1 time each quarters. It's okay to make mistakes. All right, those are sounding good. Let's move into 8th notes now. These are counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we will alternate pick down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up each time. Let's start with 8th notes, but 4 times each note. Again, try to connect each note with no pause in between. Also try to get the volume all the same. We are looking for consistency. 1, 2, 1, 2, here we go. Throw that blue note in if you know where it is. Be in that pocket. I'm trying to really match the eighth notes on the hi-hat. All right, we're gonna go to 2 times each note, still eighth notes. So move to a new note every 2 notes. Play along with me if you can. I'm improvising, and you should be too. All right, let's go to 1 time. We're starting to move around a bit, and it's getting kind of fast, but keep that alternate picking going. Now let's get into triplets. Okay, I promise that if you dial in your triplet skills, your entire sense of time and groove will get so much better. Triplets are a big part of the American music sound, anything from jazz to blues to rock to country and funk. They all have lots of triplet feel going on. Let's start with 6 times each note at triplets. I count them 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a like this. 2, 3, 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. There are other ways you can count triplets, but whatever you prefer is cool. Let's try these at 6 times each. 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and a. Now we're gonna go to 3 times each note. Ready, go. These push against the grain of the groove. That's so good for you. Now 1 time each. Ready, go. It's cooking. This is really cooking. Keep them connected. Finally, we've gotten to 16th notes. These are really going to be fast, and if you can't hang with these, no worries. Try this by yourself on a slower tempo track. I have a bunch of free ones on my site, soloonguitar.com. This is a daily exercise that I love to work on. Let's check it out. So it's gonna be counted 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 times each. Get that right hand really dialed in, or your picking hand if you're a lefty. Two times each, here we go. This is pretty challenging. All right, we're gonna go to 1 time, and this is gonna be super burning. If you can't hang on, that's all good, work towards it. Here's 1, 1, 2, 1 time each. All right, great. Let's jump into exercise 2. We're going to move on to a fairly common exercise with scales. However, we are going to approach it significantly different than most people do. What I find is that a lot of guitarists practice these types of note groups exercises over and over and over and over. And they're hoping and praying that it's somehow going to get into their creative guitar playing. So I developed a system for taking these types of note group exercises and applying them to improv in ways where they come out in your guitar playing just so much more quickly. We will start with a basic 3-note group and use the diagonal minor pentatonic scale. So this This is a classic sound that sounds awesome on guitar, and I've included a tab below that you can download to work on yourself. Here's the exercise. Ascending. And then descending. So our inclination as guitarists is to try and perfect this by playing it up and down over and over again. There is a practicality in this approach because you do need to understand how it goes, like how to actually play it. However, my challenge to you is that as soon as you can play it decently well, try to apply it to improv. Let me show you. So instead of just practicing it up and down, I try to apply smaller chunks of it to my improvisation over a backing track. I explore the pattern. I try it fast, I try it slow, I try multiple sets of them back to back. And what I would challenge you to do is explore this pattern by practicing making choices. This is the key to becoming more creative and a better improviser. The third exercise that will really move the needle for you is getting away from perfecting scales in a really boring way. What we want to do now is try to add some mojo to our scales. And the hilarious thing about scales is that they are technically the right notes, so to speak. However, if you just play up and down them and pick every note, they are kind of boring. Let's insert what I call the 5 different expressive techniques on the guitar. And I call this part of a practice session basically technique constraints or technique limitations. Let's check it out. So what am I doing here? I've limited myself to hammer-ons only. First, I will make sure that I can play all of the hammer-ons available in the diagonal pentatonic scale. Ascending and descending. Then let's apply those to improvisation. When I limit myself to different techniques, I would only probably spend 1 to 2 minutes on each technique per practice session. This is a prime time to record yourself to see how these skills are sounding. If some sound weak, then spend more time on them in your practice sessions, and you could even work more specifically on just the technique of them. I make sure that I can play them in all of the locations on the scale, and then I apply them to improvisation. So you definitely want to do the same with pull-offs as well. Now, there are 3 other important techniques left. Let's check it out. Some of that Derek Trucks isms? Yes, they come from slides, and slides make the guitar sound so great, very vocal. Slides could be ascending, they could be descending, they could be reverse ascending, or reverse descending. So definitely try them in improvisation and try and get out of your comfort zone. Now, we often default to a vague and kind of random vibrato. And what happens is people kind of press and they pinch the strings out of tune because they're just pressing down into the wood too much. That's rather than getting into like kind of an awesome, great sounding like wiggle of the note. So you really want to dial in your vibrato to fit the song and the moment. Sometimes slower, sometimes faster, sometimes wide, sometimes thin. Finally, besides that, you want to work on your bends, which is a very similar technique to vibrato. One thing I'll say about the diagonal pentatonic is the middle note of the 3-note set is by far the easiest to bend. Another bend recommendation that I really do love, and it's very simple, is I love to take a note, any note in the scale, back down a fret, and bend up a half step into it. And that works everywhere. Sounds kind of Jeff Becky. And sometimes if you don't quite get there, it's great. And that's really just a half step bend up into any note of the scale. So now that you've learned 3 incredibly effective ways to practice creatively on the guitar, watch this video next to simplify the cage system by learning 3 essential patterns that work anywhere on the guitar neck, opening up the whole fretboard.